This was the first game back from the All-Star break, and we talk about on this show that these are must-win games. The Capitals cannot afford to lose more games like this if they have any hopes of making it to the playoffs. Well, the Capitals didn't get that message.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your best bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about on the show that there is not a lot of time, and are the Capitals going to be buyers or sellers? And it's all going to be dependent on how the Capitals play. They must win these games. That was not evident tonight as the Capitals lost quite handily to the Montreal Canadiens. We'll talk about that in the show a little bit later. We will talk about that despite the loss, it was a great game for the captain. Your captain, the Great Eight, Alex Ovechkin, and also Rasmus Sandin. And then to close out the show, we will talk about how do the Capitals turn it around. We thought it was difficult tonight playing the Habs. It is only going to get more difficult as the Capitals prepare to take on the Panthers and the Bruins, two teams that are much better than the Canadiens. But just to get it going here, not the way I had it scripted out. And if you listen to this show, if you're an everydayer, one of the things that I talk about all the time on the show, the recipe for success for the Capitals is one, to play a complete game. Play a full 60-minute game. Don't play a good period, then fall asleep, and then want to turn on the Jets in the third period and get back into it. That is a recipe for failure. And also, get on the board first. The Capitals did not do any of those things as the Habs jumped to a 3-0 lead in the first period and chased Charlie Lindgren out of the net. Now, Capitals fans, let's be clear here. I've already heard some things on social media that why did the Capitals go with Charlie Lindgren? What's going on with Chucky Sideburns, the outlaw? It had little to do with his game. It was all about a momentum change. That is ultimately why Spencer Carberry gave him the let's go, and Darcy Kemper, it's your turn to go out there. It was all about a momentum change. They worked over Charlie Lindgren, so what they wanted to do was get a momentum change. It is quite often that you see that happen out there, but the Capitals tonight, that was not the recipe for success. That is not the way you're going to win games. Losing 5-2, that does not give me a whole lot of confidence that this team has changed or that there's hope for this season. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, and I'll talk about this in the last segment, but how do they turn this around with this same group? There is going to have to be a big internal switch somewhere that's flipped in order for them to turn this season around. But taking a look at what's going on here, well, the Caps didn't answer any of the questions that I had asked about them. You know, how are you going to play a complete game? What is the recipe for success? They didn't have the answers. And taking a look at how it went out there, Aube-Kubel giving up the puck and Cole Caulfield forcing a turnover going on a 3-on-1, leading to a Suzuki goal. There are a lot of great players on the Montreal Canadiens. It's a fast team. It is a skilled team and some young talent in particular. Nick Suzuki has 2 goals on the evening, and Slafkovsky has 2 goals, a young man on the team. That is a young team. I think not exclusively young, but there is some young, great talent on that team that's on the rise, and it's being run under the tutelage of Martin St. Louis. Of course, remember him as a player playing for, the Lightning, one team in particular. And, it was a team that I didn't think was going to give the Capitals as much problems as they did, but it was a handful for the Capitals as, they threw the kitchen sink at the Capitals. Alex Ovechkin was looking to make a breakdown ice, but Suzuki had plans for scoring another goal, and TVR blowing a tire behind and Mcmichael losing the handle, and Michael Pezzetta making the Caps pay led to a 3-0 deficit and chased Charlie out of the net after surrendering 3 goals on 9 shots. And, if you take a look at the box score alone, you would think that it was Charlie Lindgren's fault. I mean, let's face it, he surrendered 3 goals on 9 shots. But like I said, like I talked about there, TVR blowing the tire, Alex Ovechkin getting ready to make a breakaway down the ice, and Nicolas Aube-Kubel just not being dialed in, not being aware of his surroundings, coughing up the puck. And that message was sent to Nicolas Aube-Kubel as he did not play for the remainder of the first period. Carberry on pulling Lindgren, it just had to change the momentum. The chances that we give up, it's the same old story. We just made some massive mistakes that, unfortunately for us, are just happening to different guys each night. It's tough. So even with Evgeny Kuznetsov out of the lineup, this team is not any better. With enter in Michael Scarbosa into the lineup, that it was a tough thing to watch this game. And especially when you're down 3-0, unless your team has just some tremendous tenacity and some tremendous pushback, it is difficult to overcome a deficit that great. The Habs are a younger team with a lot of speed and some truly skilled players. The Caps were getting the shots in. They just weren't making the most of them. If you take a look at the shots out there, it's not like the Capitals were not getting a lot of shots out in the game, but they were just not accurate. They were not finding pay dirt to the back of the net. That's what it's all about in the end of the day. Dylan Strome picked up his 13th and 14th assists of the season to extend his point streak to 3 games and to take the team lead in scoring. He also led with 7 shots. So just to be an accurate assessment of the team, they were getting some production. In the next segment, I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin, but the first period, Capitals fans, was rough. And, again, we take a look at Nicolas Aube-Kubel. He kind of started the negativity wheels in motion, and Spencer Carberry made a note of that. He's just like, no, you're going to sit on the bench for the rest of the period, and you're going to think about what you did. And he did that. And all things considered, I like Aube-Kubel's game. I just think that he was kind of caught flat-footed and not ready for Cole Caulfield that was around him. And again, they made him pay as he fed the puck to Suzuki, and the Habs scored a goal. But kind of, really impressive if you take a look at the team. I'll talk about the standings a little bit more later, but taking a look at the Canadiens, they are in 7th place in the Atlantic, and that with a record of 21-21. That was before the game, so 500, so 22-21. So a team that's not that great. The only team underneath them is the Senators. So again, if we think that it's going to get any easier for the Capitals, it is not. And, it's going to be an interesting test for this team on Thursday and this weekend as they take on the Panthers, they take on the Bruins. How are they going to get it done? But taking a look at the game tonight, that is not how you win games. Giving up a 3-goal, letting the Habs on the board, getting 3 goals while you have none and no real pushback for quite some time, that was a tough thing to watch. And it's just a disjointed team. And the thing of it is I had high hopes that, they were going to come out of this all-star break and they were just going to hit it hard. And they didn't really do that. There was some pushback a little bit later in the game, but, just to fall so flat-footed to start the game was really disheartening. I have a hard time taking a look at this team and saying, they're headed in the right direction. That rest did a good for this team, other than Alex Ovechkin, I guess. But they need to turn the page, as they don't have a lot of time to rest, as the Florida Panthers are the next team that the Capitals will face. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about how the game was not a great game for the Capitals, suffices to say, as they fall by a large margin, but it was a good game for two players in particular, Alex Ovechkin and Rasmus Sandin. I'll talk about them coming up. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Now listen, my football team is no longer in it, but I still have vested interest in the Super Bowl. When I open that FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game, all of a sudden I'm in it. I want to know what's going to happen next. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals did lose by a large margin, 5-2. It wasn't even close. There was no real chance that I thought maybe the Capitals are going to get in there. I guess there was a brief, snippet there when Rasmus Sandin scored the goal. I thought maybe, but ultimately then the Montreal Canadiens had the answer, and all of those hopes were dashed, and that door was slammed. But Alex Ovechkin, Rasmus Sandin, a really great game for both of them. One of the things that Alex Ovechkin said is that during the break, he felt refreshed. He didn't think about hockey or systems, or, he just rested, and he let that all those negative thoughts just kind of wash out of him. And, one of the things that spoke of as players get older, they can't hit it quite as hard. They don't hit the gym as hard. I think that there is an underlying injury with Alex Ovechkin. I think that, maybe his head was kind of tied in knots with his team not playing as well as he had hoped for. So the All-Star break was just what the doctor ordered for Alex Ovechkin, which was evident tonight. Ovechkin and Sandin had plans to stage a comeback, but the rest of the team did not get that memo. Alex Ovechkin returned to practice Monday with a fire in his belly to play better, and he did that Tuesday night against the Habs. The biggest thing that had eluded him, the grade 8 this season, is in the goal scoring department. Well, he got that done tonight. Ovi made good on his shot with a great feed from Strome. It was Ovi's 10th goal of the season and his second in as many games. Is this a sign of things to come? Now, listen, Alex Ovechkin cannot carry this entire team on his back. He cannot be a great netminder. He cannot be a great blue liner, but he can lead by example, and he should at the end of the day, as he is wearing the C on his chest. That, he's going to have to lead by example. And he did that. Oftentimes when you see Alex Ovechkin play well, it's when he is playing a physical style of game. Sometimes he just likes to get the juices flowing, the adrenaline going when he's making big hits. When he is that bull in the china shop, that is when Alex Ovechkin plays really well. Ultimately, all things considered, I don't think we could have asked for anything more from the grade 8 tonight. He got a goal. He was engaged. He was getting shots. He was doing what he could do. Again, he is the leader. He is the captain, but he can't do it all. He did enough. He did more than enough in this game. Ultimately, could he have scored a couple more goals? Sure. But, all things considered, I was very happy with Alex Ovechkin's game. And if you are a fan, if you watch the game, you should be as well. Ovi was the offensive spark plug for the team after the Caps outshot the Habs 16-5 in the second and leading in attempts 31-27. 7. And oftentimes on this show, I say that. And if you're an everydayer, you know that. As Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. Now, when he was engaged, the Capitals played better. It wasn't enough, but it got the engine going. Before, you were turning the engine over, nothing. Dead battery. Dead battery. All of a sudden, Alex Ovechkin comes over with the jumper cables, and he's like, I got this, guys. The car started up and the engine was going, but it was, it's an older engine and there's a lot of miles on it, and it wasn't enough. Ultimately, Alex Ovechkin needs to get in a younger car and start it up and hear the roar, and maybe I think there's a chance. But at the end of the day, Alex Ovechkin is still trying to lead an old team, but he did what he could do. There's a reason that he wears that C on his chest. Ovi has 12 points in 12 games. Now, again, I'm often the guy that's shooting the arrows, but I at the same time should be the guy that's giving out the applause when he plays well. And Alex Ovechkin played one heck of a game. I don't think there's a whole lot more that we could ask from him. It was not just Ovi, though. Rasmus Sandin scores his second goal of the season, and it cut Washington's deficit to 4-2. Sandin, who scored a career-high 7 goals last season, has now scored in back-to-back games. Rasmus Sandin, a blue liner, getting involved in the offense. A little bit more of that, please. We like that from Rasmus Sandin. So he is as advertised. We remember Rasmus Sandin, of course. The Capitals sent Hathaway and Orlov out to Boston. In return, the Capitals got Craig Smith and some draft picks. Well, the Capitals sent Gustafsson and one of those draft picks up to Toronto. In return, they got Rasmus Sandin, a piece of the present and the future on the blue line, and it seems like it is paying off in spades for the Capitals. We want to see more of that from Rasmus Sandin. But talking about their game tonight, Alex Ovechkin knocking it out of the park and Rasmus Sandin doing what he could do. With honorable mention, I would also put in there Dylan Strome with that sweet feed as well. That it was, despite taking a look at the box score, you would think that it was a total dumpster fire. Wasn't really the case. I mean, it wasn't their best game. I would say it was probably their worst first period, maybe of the season. I don't know. There's been some bad ones in there, but it was definitely one of the worst first periods of the season. But they found a way to turn the page, and they did it in a familiar way with the grade A to Alex Ovechkin leading the charge. Hopefully, we can see more of that from him, and maybe some of the other experienced guys on the team. I mean, there's a lot of really great guys on this team. Tom Wilson and TJ Oshie and John Carlson. The experience is there. You would swear sometimes when you watch this team that it was a team of inexperienced players. It's not the case. And, I think that one of the things that's coming into focus is, I talk about this on the show, is that it's an old team, and they're going to have to find a way to get this old team across the finish line if they have any plans of making it to the playoffs. With that said, that is an extreme long shot. I would not expect the Capitals to play beyond the end of the season. Now, listen, I would love nothing more than to be wrong about this, but I would say that it would be very difficult unless the Capitals can do a complete turnaround for them to have any hopes of making it to the playoffs this year. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about what is next for the Capitals. It was not a pretty game tonight, all things considered. There were glimpses of greatness. Alex Ovechkin scoring a goal, getting shots, Rasmus Sandin, sweet feeds from Dylan Strome, but there was a whole lot of bad, and it seems like the bad outweighs the good on this year's Capitals team. How do they turn it around, and is it even possible? I'll discuss coming up. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with better candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree to Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to recent Indeed surveys. Now, listen here. If you're in HR, you don't have time to be wading through paper applications. What year is it anyway? It's 2024. You need Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we are past the All-Star break. We're past the halfway point of the season. And what is the identity of this team? I keep thinking that they're going to turn the page, that it's going to be this marker and they're going to get better. Let's remember something, that at the Thanksgiving break this season, the Capitals were in second place, and I was feeling pretty good. A lot of people were feeling pretty good, but how things have changed. Inconsistency, and we don't have the normal excuses to write anymore. We can't say, well, half of our team is injured like last season. This team is as healthy as it's going to get. Nick Backstrom is on the LTIR. Evgeny Kuznetsov has entered into the Players Assistance Program, and Sonny Milano is really the only guy that's out that is on the verge of coming back. Now, I would like to think that Sonny Milano is a Superman and can put on a cape and fly in here and take this team to the promised land, but it is not the case. Sonny Milano is going to give a negligible return, maybe a little bit above average to this team. I don't think he's going to be a game changer. Any game changer that we thought was going to be there is here. Max Pacioretty is here. Has he been a game changer? Sort of. Joel Edmondson, he's here. Has he been a game changer? Kind of. And Ethan Bear, the shiny toy that we went out and we sought it and we beat a lot of other teams and we gave him term and a good contract. And what did the Capitals do? Oh, him? He's been a healthy scratch. What is this team doing? What direction are they going in? And is it even possible for this core of players to turn it around? My belief is that they will be sellers. Woo, I guess that's not too surprising. I've talked about that, and everyone's talked about this team for a long time. I would expect the Capitals to be very busy at the deadline, or even before the deadline, as oftentimes GMs like to take care of these kind of things before that the Capitals will be offloading assets galore. There might be some players on this team that you're like, oh, no, don't let him go. Nope, he's out of here because this isn't working. I mean, and Capitals fans, let's get our heads screwed on right. This team is not doing well. They will not make it to the playoffs for the second year in a row. Do you still so desperately want to hold on to TJ Oshie? Do you so desperately want to hold on to John Carlson? Do you so desperate? Listen, we've got to get over it. The time has come to turn the page. 2018 is getting further and further in the rearview mirror. The future is at hand, Capitals fans. As we take a look in the rearview mirror, we'll see that we have more wrinkles in our face because we are getting older, and it's not like 2018 was yesterday. It's been some time. We need to move on. Brian McClellan, Ted Leonsis, they've taken that Rock the Red era sponge and they've squeezed all the juice that they can possibly get out of it. And bunk, they got a couple drops out, and it's Alex Ovechkin, but he is only getting drops here and there. And those drops are not enough to take this Capitals team over the top. We need to have a come to Jesus moment with this team. Everyone gather around the monitor, your headphones, your car stereo, whatever the case might be. It's not enough. Changes need to be made if we want this team to be competitive again. If you think that this team built as is right now with Spencer Carberry and the same team out there has any hopes of making it to the playoffs or even a push deep into the playoffs, you are drinking delusional Kool-Aid, and you should probably set it down. It is not going to happen. And I earlier I talked about how I love this team, still love this team, love the players, but it's not about loving the players. What it's about is that these players, they're not going to get it done. And, I have to look past my affection for these players, my fondness of these players, because they're not getting it done. And at the end of the day, I'm not so married to most of any of the players on the team as far as, they can't go. Oh no, don't let him go. I want the guy on this team that's going to make this team better, whoever that might be. I still stand by my assessment that Brian McClellan should be willing to listen to offers on every player on the team, except I would say Alex Ovechkin and perhaps Tom Wilson. Everyone else, I'd have that phone on, listening to offers. Brian McClellan here, GM of the Capitals. Oh, what kind of return could I get for a John Carlson? What kind of return could I get for a TJ Oshie? I probably should have done this years ago because I'm not getting nearly as much as I thought it would in 2024. Should have probably thought about doing it in 2019 or 2020. This has kind of bit me in the butt. That's where the Capitals are at right now. They've held on to this core for too long and say you want to get crazy and go, I'm going to trade TJ Oshie. I'm going to trade John Carlson. You're not going to get nearly as much as you think you're going to get. Those players are older, their stats are diminished, and they should have probably thought about trading those players years ago. Now they're in a tough position where they're kind of wandering in the wilderness, and everyone said, let's do a rebuild. Let's do a rebuild. That's a good idea, Dan. Is it a good idea? Why don't you ask the Washington Nationals, who have been losers and had one of the worst records in all of Major League Baseball, one of, not the. And it's a tough thing for the Nationals. It would be a tough thing for the Capitals if they in fact did a tear it down to the studs rebuild. I'm talking about send them all out. John Carlson, Oshie, I'm talking about everything. Goaltenders, just off, shoot all the assets out of here. It would be a tough thing. The Capitals ultimately waited too long, and that's the position that they're in, that they're going to have to face a rebuild. But when everyone says that they, should do a rebuild, let's understand a couple things and what that means. This team is not going to be good for years. When you look at rebuild, it's not like you just flip a switch and this young talent comes in here and it's great. That is not how it works. The Capitals have their work cut out for them as they take on the Florida Panthers Thursday. They take on the Bruins this weekend. It is not going to get any easier. There's tough questions ahead for the Capitals. I think they need to move out some assets. Let's not get crazy. Let's get some returns, and let's start concentrating on the future of the Capitals. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank you that listen on the audio side or watching this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. Yes, this channel is growing and all over the place, so make sure and check that out. It's a whole lot like ESPN, but that much better. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.